He says, a transformation can be accomplished by modulating the polarization of the electromagnetic energy radiated from antennas or apertures of RF or laser transmitters, or by tuning the frequency of wavelength of EM forms to toroidal geometries that cause the waveforms. Alternating current moves. These two methods increase EM field symmetry from U1 to SU2 and result in non-abelian gauge fields with the ability to couple globally with fields of similar. So he's saying if you can modify, change the polarization, do this modification, you can now suddenly turn a normal electromagnetic field, think of light, into something that straight up manipulates gravity. Now, where's the secret? Where did the physicists miss? What did they miss? They just assumed that it was something straightforward. They were just looking for, hey, here's electromagnetism, here's gravity, now they're connected. But no, there was actually a lock. There was a secret recipe that was needed to unlock them. That's what they missed. And it requires understanding there's an extra dimension or you can't even get there. You can't even figure it out. And how did these people figure it out? Because they looked at experiments like quantum tunneling, quantum entanglement, and they realized, oh, this is what nature's doing. Maybe this is what's really going on. These two methods increase EM field symmetry and results in the non-abelian fields able to globally couple with fields of similar through the action or something that may be common to both. So here's the thing that's common to both fields. What's common to gravity and what's common to normal electromagnetism? The vector potential. The A vector potential is possibly where we're going to find the key that connects the two together. There it is, the A vector potential. Thus, if non-abelian gauge field configurations with SU2 components are associated with gravitation or zero-point energy, there should be a possibility for modifying gravitational or zero-point energy influences within the specially conditioned beams of radiation. Who wants to know how it's done? Eric W. Davis, when he was talking about how do you create negative energy in a lab, when he was whistleblowing to us, I was listening. Ashton was listening very closely to what he said. And he said, a parabolic cylindrical mirror. A parabolic cylindrical mirror. Basically, this can made out of a mirror. The can made out of a mirror creates at its center line, right through the middle of it, a focus of negative energy, a beam of negative energy, you could even think. That's his idea, and have it spin and rotate. And you can do this and you can get potentially those accelerating effects, and you can cause an amplification of negative energy around the focal point of your cylindrical mirror. And I would say, oh, I know how to do that. They literally figured out how to do this with plasma. They literally made cylindrical plasma mirrors just like this. In fact, this is also very similar to dense plasma focus and some of the fusion mechanisms as well. Okay, it's almost Yahtzee time. Let's keep going. The propagating speed of electromagnetic disturbances within a given region of empty space is determined by the electrical permittivity and magnetic permeability of the vacuum by which they move. So the speed of light, if we now realize space is a medium, we can engineer the speed of light, because the speed of light is literally the permittivity and permeability of space-time. So if we change the permittivity and permeability of space-time, we change the speed of light. Anyone says the speed of light's a constant, well, kind of correct, but also kind of dumb. Wave fronts within normal electromagnetic beams therefore propagate as planar or spherical disturbances at constant c. However, if polarization modulated beams, the conditioned beams, interact with space-time metric, permeability and permittivity and wavefront speeds changed within the specially conditioned beams, then the EM fronts will propagate as non-planar or non-spherical disturbances at variable speeds within the beams. This is what I wanted to read. Creation of polarization modulated EM radiation. A means of creating polarization modulated EM radiation of SU2 symmetry in non-abelian form is described by Barrett. So this is basically saying, how do you create your gravity beam? One fraction or ordinary input of electromagnetic energy is seen to be divided into 3 fractions. Okay, 3 fractions. Split your beam into 3. One fraction, orthogonally polarized. Change the polarization. Change the polarization of one of the beams. Okay, got it. Another fraction is expended in accomplishing the phase modulation of the polarization rotated wave energy. So modulate the phase of the wave. The remaining fraction of the input energy is then combined with that of the polarized and phase modulated wave. So then mix it back all together, and the emission of especially emitted electromagnetic radiation will continually vary polarization with respect to time. If a fraction of the input wave energy is expended in accomplishing the phase modulation, the electric and magnetic field intensity associated with the polarization modulated radiation can be less than for normal EM radiation for a given input power. But energy conservation requires that expended energy not truly vanish, but be transformed into another form. One possibility would be increased A vector potential field intensity within the EM radiation. Oh boy, there it is. There it is. How do I explain this? So, due to conservation, if we're increasing energy somewhere, it has to be at the cost somewhere else. So he's saying, I think what he's saying here is we can control where the energy output goes. We can focus the energy into the A vector potential we're trying to create. In respect to the plane and the orbs spinning around the plane, it's basically saying we don't need these orbs to get super hot. We can keep these things low energy, and we're focusing all the energy we're creating into creating this wormhole, this connection, this invisible tunnel between here and over here. Focus on creating the quantum tunneling. That's what we want you on. That's what you're good at. If so, significant polarization modulation could significantly diminish electric and magnetic field intensity while increasing the A vector potential intensity for coupling with the A vector fields. That's exactly what okay, there it is. Yep. I was right there. There's the next sentence. Sorry, I just had to read the next sentence, chat. My bad. Figure 4 shows the path trade out by the arrow of the electric fields and the polarization. So you say, well, how is it going to determine where it's going? This is all based on electromagnetism. So everything about where the plane's going must also be based on electromagnetism. The last bit, I think I just want to go to the last part down here. Which one? This part down here, but okay, let's read this. Vector potential wave patterns. Specially conditioned electromagnetic fields consist entirely of the A vector potential wave patterns can be created. Holy shit. That's saying you can make a wormhole. You can make engineer systems by which almost all the energy is being put into the wormhole. That's what they're saying right there. By flow of alternating current through a toroid with single windings. You wonder why the orbs are spinning around the plane? They're literally creating a toroid. They're literally creating a toroid around the plane. The resulting magnetic and electric fields do not extend significantly outside of the toroid, but its geometry and the alternating current flow produces overlapping A vector potential patterns which extend outward from the toroid significant distances. Yeah. Wow. It is winding up. It is winding up, chat. When they're spinning around the plane, just like the image on the right here, they're creating those A vector potentials around it. But what happens is, as they keep spinning like that, they constructively interfere with one another. I'm guessing that makes them wind up, basically. So this actually might be distance limited. We might actually not be able to teleport to Alpha Centauri with this. Interesting. I still think we can eventually, no matter what, but the overlapping patterns combine into a phase factor waves, which represent disturbances in the A vector potential. Yeah, exactly. I was right. The overlapping patterns. The pattern of these disturbances, shown in figure 6, become almost spherical in shape as the distances from the toroid of the order of its diameter are greater. At present time, it is not known whether the phase factor waves are standing waves or if they propagate at non-zero speed. Wow. It says, and interactions with space-time metric or the ZPF would be expected to be the most intense at the various resonant frequencies if an A vector potential field underlies the essence of ZPF. So he's also saying from this part right here, this effect is resonance-based. You're only going to see this effect strongly when you hit the right resonant condition. Otherwise, you're not going to see anything at all. So in addition to all of this, then you also need to be able to hit the right resonant frequency. And that resonant frequency may depend. It's going to depend on the medium that you're using. In the case of plasma, it depends on the plasma frequency. The last bit, this is the most crazy part to me. Electrical power needs. It would be desirable that specially conditioned EM beams used in operational field propulsion systems not require significantly greater electrical power than required by powerful radar and laser systems in use or other use. But although significant electrical power is likely to be required for the generation of the EM beam, such power would be invested primarily in the creation of A vector potential disturbances, not in the generation of intense electric and magnetic fields. Wow. That's why the orbs are so low energy. This confirms, by the way, that the letter to ash in Forbes is real. It's a low energy phase transition. Why? Because they're converting all the energy into A vector potential energy, into wormhole energy, space juice energy, if you want to think of it like that. They're converting all that energy into space juice energy. That's a very scientific term, by the way, chat. And he says it's going to require a huge amount of energy to produce these electromagnetic beams. To make these specially conditioned beams, we need a large amount of energy. But it's going to be focused not on making a huge electricity ball that's super powerful. It's going to be focused on manipulating space-time. That's why the main condition of the orbs is them spinning around the plane, because they're just little balls of lightning, little balls of electricity. More advanced field propulsion systems that could interact more strongly with gravity or vacuum 0 point state could require higher power that is achievable for greater power than is achievable. Such levels of power would have to be supplied by systems of extremely high energy density. So he's saying we can't do this with normal propulsion mechanisms. Normal engines are not producing enough energy to do this. Now, this is huge. You say, Ashton, why is this not, if we can manipulate gravity in space-time, why are people not building more of these devices? Because they require a huge amount of energy to produce the conditioned electromagnetic beam. To just produce the beam, it requires a large amount of energy to pull off. And it's very complicated based on what I just told you. Now, listen closely, because this is the best part. One example of this type of system might be the aneutronic fusion electric spacecraft power system proposed by Robert Bussard, which emits no neutrons and causes no radioactivity. Hell yes, chat. Where is it?